The band I have researched is one that everyone knows, the Beatles. They were formed by John Lennon. He was born on October 9th, 1940 in Liverpool, England. His parents divorced when he was only 4 years old. They sent him to live with his Aunt Mimi. After he was sent to live with his aunt, he rarely ever saw his father, and his mother only came to visit him on occasion. Later on, his mother was run over by an off-duty police officer in July of 1958. This was the most traumatic event in Lennon's life. Along with Lennon, there were 3 other members of the band: Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. McCartney was born June 18, 1942, to Mary and John, who were traditional working-class people. His mother died when he was just 14 due to a complication after a mastectomy. The death of McCartney and Lennon's mothers is what bonded them together. George Harrison was born on February 25, 1943, to Harold and Louise, who were again just an average family. When he was young, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and his parents got a divorce. At the age of 16, Lennon started a band called Quarrymen, which later on turned into the Beatles. He then met Paul McCartney, and he joined the group as Lennon's co-writer. Then, McCartney introduced George Harrison to the group, and lastly, Ringo Starr. The Beatles were influenced by a lot of artists before them, such as Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, and Carl Perkins. Later on, the Beatles became a huge influence on later artists like Nirvana, the Foo Fighters, and the Beach Boys. This sensational band had many professional achievements. In 1964, they became the first British band to make it big in the United States. Their first album topped UK's charts for 33 weeks in a row. 11 of their first 12 albums reached number 1 on national charts, and they revolutionized rock music. They also won an Oscar for the Best Original Score for the film Let It Be. They won 10 Grammys and are still considered the best-selling band in music history. The breakup of the band was almost as much as a legend as the band itself. The group breakup happened in a span from 1968 to 1970. First, Lennon informed the group in September of 1969 that he was leaving, but the public wasn't aware of the breakup until McCartney announced his departure in April of 1970. They all went their separate ways and created their own separate albums. John Lennon was shot and killed by a crazed fan named Mark David Chapman on December 8th of 1980. George Harrison died in December of 2001 at the age of 58 after he had been suffering with lung cancer and a brain tumor. Ringo and Paul McCartney are still alive and well today.
The Beatles changed the world forever. They made irreverence cool in mainstream culture, and they made long hair acceptable and even desirable for men. They pioneered the music video, and they also changed the way that we experience music by trying to make all of their music worthwhile by putting out a whole album to the public at a time. The Beatles had truly revolutionized the world.